embargo, then move on to the embargoed section for a 10:30 p.m. embargo this evening, and then we will finish with a Sunday section with the 10:30 embargo on Saturday night. 5 questions per broadcaster, 3 questions per journalist, and we will start off with Mark McAdam from Sky Sports News.
Morning, Eddie. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Mark.
2 games to go, 3 points adrift with a weaker goal difference. They talk about big games and must-wins. How do you see this weekend's fixture with Southampton?
It's a nice, gentle introduction, Mark. I'd say, it's a game where we're obviously going to do everything in our power to try and win.
When you look at your recent performances and results, do you feel like this is a different Bournemouth team to what perhaps you saw when the Premier League restarted?
I think a couple of things on that question. I'd say confidence levels have definitely shifted upwards as we've gone on through lockdown. Maybe it's coincided with a better physical feeling from a lot of our players who came into the lockdown period with minimal training and minimal game exposure due to the fact that we'd had a number of injuries. So maybe the two things are interlinked with each other. But definitely, I think you're seeing a better performances from the team, especially in the last 3 games.
Up next, the South Coast Derby in Southampton, a side that have picked up more points away from home than they have at home. They drew with Manchester United. They beat Manchester City. They obviously have all the credentials to pose yourselves a real problem. How do you approach a game of this magnitude?
Well, I think for us, our last 2 home games have been very good. So you look back at the Tottenham game and the Leicester game, and I think it's very much approached the game in the same manner. That's both tactically and physically and mentally. Been really, really pleased with our last 2 home performances. That got us 4 points against 2 really tough opponents, and we know Southampton have got a lot of time for what they've done this season. It's been an incredible turnaround, and they're playing very, very well. The results they've had haven't been through luck. I think their performances have been very, very strong.
You'll be up against someone who you know very well in Danny Ings, who's got 20 Premier League goals, 23 in all competitions this season. You gave him his debut back in October 2009 for Bournemouth. How impressed are you with him, the way he's developed his career, the player he's now become, and how do you stop him this weekend?
Yeah, full of praise for Danny. His journey's been a really interesting one to see, first from obviously very close up, where I was his manager and signed him for Burnley, and then from afar. The most impressive thing I think about Danny is, of course, he's an outstanding player. Technically, he's very good, plays with real intelligence, and the way he's come back from his disappointments, the injury setbacks he's had, the way that he's fought back and kept his mental strength has been hugely impressive.
And in terms of the Bournemouth team news ahead of the weekend, obviously Nathan Ake didn't make the game last week after the injury. Is there any chance he can be involved, because he's been such a key player for Bournemouth, not just this season, but since he joined?
Yeah, he has. I don't think he'll make this game. Whether he's back in for Everton, whether he has a chance for that game, I don't know at this moment. But I think for this game, it's going to be too tight.
Thank you, Eddie.
No problem.
Thanks, Mark. We'll go to Paul Belveston from PLP.
Morning, Eddie. What's your other team news? Have you got anyone back or anyone doubtful that you can tell us?
Adam Smith, we'll make a late decision on. He's felt better, so he's got a chance. I'm just trying to think back. Chris Meppelman, Charlie Daniels, Simon Francis. As I said, Nathan will probably all be out.
How about, rather than injuries, is fatigue a big issue at the moment? I think you've had 5 games in 14 days.
I'd say no. Within the group, I don't get that feeling, especially watching Manchester City. Our performance there, I didn't see fatigue as an issue, and actually we got stronger as the game went on. We've tried to rotate the team as much as we can while keeping the strength of the team. We've tried to use the substitutes rule to give players some kind of rest in certain stages by using our substitutes as early as possible to try and minimise that, because I think what we're certainly aware of during the spell, that to play the same players for 90 minutes consistently would have been a big problem. So hopefully we've tried to get that balance right. Of course, we've got injuries defensively, which almost takes that out of our hands. But I'd say the majority of the squad, the ones that are fit, are in a very good place.
And how pleased have you been with the impact of the substitutes? Because for so much of the season, you were so ravaged by injuries, but you've had the likes of Junior, Callum, David all coming on and really affecting games from the bench.
Yeah, I think when you look at the bench against Manchester City, we really did feel that if we were in the game, we would have had a real chance of making an impact there with the quality that we had on the bench. And I'd say the last few weeks, players have come on and made a positive difference for the team. And you're right, I think through the season we haven't necessarily had that strength in depth. We have now, and that can always make the difference. With the new rules and your ability to make subs earlier, the importance of those players cannot be underestimated.
And you said, I think, on the final whistle after City that you were devastated by the result. I'm sure it was a similar feeling in the dressing room. I wonder how quickly you managed to turn that negative into a positive. Was it still sombre on the journey home and sort of all back to normal in training the next day, or were the positives sort of embraced in that dressing room? I think
the feeling in the squad was, of course, one of disappointment when you don't win. But I think we were heartened by the performance, and no, I didn't sense any overkill on the negativity. I think it's very much focused on the next game. It has to be. And these are two games that we have to try and get maximum points from. We can only focus on the first one, which is Southampton, and I anticipate the players will be in a really good place for that game. You won at St Mary's back in September. How different are Southampton today to back then? Yeah, I'd say they've improved as the season's gone on. I think Ralph deserves a huge amount of credit for what he's done with the team there. I think now when you watch Southampton play, they play as he would want them to, in terms of the philosophy that he's taken into the team has now been fully developed, and very hard-working team, a lot of energy, and they've got very good players as well. So for me, they've been one of the most impressive teams in the second half of the season this year. Good stuff. Good luck. Thank you.
Thanks, Balbus. We're going to James Savundra from TalkSport.
Morning, Eddie.
Good morning.
Eddie, 2 matches left to go. Do you feel like 2 victories will be enough to keep Bournemouth in the Premier League?
I've got no idea what it will take. All we can do is try and win our 2 games and hope that that's good enough.
Will you be watching the West Ham-Watford game tonight?
I've got to say I've watched a lot of games during the lockdown period due to the fact that we're due to play a lot of the teams that have been on. I don't know whether I watch the game tonight. My main focus, of course, is on Southampton. So we're preparing for that game, and that takes importance over any other result or any other game that's going on.
How important do you think these last 2 performances have been in terms of taking confidence not only into these last 2 matches, but also into next season as well, regardless of what division you'll be in?
Yeah, I think regardless of where you stand at that moment in any league, I think you want to perform to your maximum levels. You want to see the players performing at their best. And I think if you're seeing that on a regular basis, you know the results will follow. You go back to the Tottenham game, we gave a lot to that match. The Leicester game, the second half was excellent. And then for Manchester City, for me, the whole performance was very high. So that's positive steps. And I think if we can keep building, then that's all you can do. You can only play the next game in front of you.
And you spoke earlier about a better physical feeling amongst some of the squad. Has it taken some of them a little while to get that match sharpness from having long layoffs and also coming back from the lockdown?
Yeah, I don't think necessarily coming out of the lockdown was a problem physically, because I think all of the players I know worked incredibly hard during that period. But I think the long-term injuries, there's no substitute for playing games and getting your momentum and feel back from those matches. And unfortunately, we weren't able to give them that. I think all of those players that have come out of the long-term injuries took a little bit of time to get to their best levels, and hopefully we're seeing them returning to that peak state now. hopefully that will serve us very well in these two games.
And just finally from me, we know you work with Danny Ings here at Bournemouth and also at Burnley as well. Back when you worked with him, did you think he had the potential to be a striker who could score 20 plus goals a season in the Premier League?
Danny's always someone that's been really highly rated by myself, Jason, and the rest of my coaching team. He's, we're delighted to see a homegrown Bournemouth player come through and do so well in the Premier League. I think it's a feeling of pride for us. I always felt he had the ability. He just needed a little bit of luck to go with it, and obviously the platform to show what he's got. And I think he's doing that on a regular basis now. So I'm really pleased for him.
Thanks, Eddie. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, James. We'll go to Ed Elliott from PA.
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
There were so many positives from that City game. When you see a performance like that, do you sometimes sort of wonder how the club are in the position that they are in?
I think there's sometimes a feeling of frustration because for me, I've always known the quality of the group and what we can produce. I've never doubted that. So, of course, those feelings I think are natural. But I think you can only judge what you see in front of you at that moment. It's very difficult to go back and almost critique the team based on the past. I think you can only do it from the now and the future. So, for various reasons, we are where we are. We can only now focus on the next two games and what's in front of us.
And I imagine it must have been quite a bittersweet feeling after that game because you were getting so much praise from people for your performance, but like you said, the points weren't there.
Yeah, as always, the priority is to win the game over everything, and then if you can't win, it's to draw. And now, if you lose, there's ways to lose. We still had that feeling of defeat, which is the worst thing you can experience in football. But there was so many good things to take from it, and if we can perform like that again and repeat that high performance level with the number of chances we created at a very strong opponent, then that will serve us very well. And
the West Ham Watford game has already been mentioned. Would you encourage the players to watch that tonight? Do you want them to sort of follow that and see what's going on, or are you not too bothered either way?
I'd encourage the players not to watch it, if I'm honest, and just focus on themselves and get themselves in the best physical and mental condition to play our game on Sunday. That would be my thought process.
And just finally, we've spoken about injuries and lack of goals in previous weeks. What can you actually put your finger on what has been sort of the major issue this season?
A host of things. It's never one thing when a team's not successful. A team doesn't win games. It's never one thing. It's always a collection of things. There's no use for me to run through this with you now because my only thought is on Southampton.
Yeah, thanks, Eddie. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks, Ed. We'll move on to the embargo section for 10:30 p.m. tonight.